Lately, I've been hearing a lot of people say, take advantage of your advantages. People spend too much time focused on what they do not have in the moment. And, most people have some kind of advantage, but they're not, using it for themselves. It's really easy to overlook what you're already good at or already have in your life. People normalize their own strengths. I've always been good at XYZ. And it's just kind of normal to them now. Also, people tend to pay attention to what other people have more often than, what they have. And people focus with, especially with social media nowadays, you just see what everyone else has that you don't. A lot of people also discredit like what an advantage is, and they think it only matters if it's a huge advantage or it's very impressive or something like that. Sometimes the biggest advantages are just like something like stability and low expenses, time, things like that, people don't really realize in the moment and they take for granted. And like I said, social media is constantly highlighting, the highlights of everyone's lives. It keeps your attention on what you're lacking in your own life. And I see it really makes people, feel like their progress is super slow and not normal, or, they're just not at where they want to be in life. And that makes people, not realize the blessings they have in their own life, or, opportunities in their own lives. So bringing this into personal finance a little bit, not everyone starts in the same place. And it's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to personal finance. As a recent college grad myself, I see kids, their parents help them out while they're in school. Maybe they have a paid-off car. Maybe their parents give them money or something like that, or their school's free, or they're on scholarship or something. And those are all advantages you have in your life, even though it might feel normal to you. And obviously, if you have none of those things, you might have other things. Maybe you have a great group of friends that really care about you, or a great group of people around you, or you have a great job lined up. Anything like that is an advantage. I see kids, maybe their family owns a business or something and they don't want to do that, or maybe they do want to do that, but that's an advantage that people have that others don't. But once again, if you've had those things your whole life, they tend to feel normal. And I'm in full favor of taking advantage of what is given to you in your life. You don't have to start from the absolute bottom to, prove yourself or something like that. In reality, you have it easier than some people in some way probably in your life. Even if you don't have much and you're young, you got a lot of time, man. So there's always something. There are some examples in personal finance that I do want to talk about. The first one is being really young. You have a lot of time to compound your money, over the years. And you can really set yourself up if you're able to, save a lot of money when you're really young. And these are all kind of things that people probably maybe already have. You can probably live at home, save some money. You can get a stable income. These are all things that are, things you can do that may not feel like an advantage, but they are. Maybe if you didn't go to college, you don't have any debt or anything like that. You're way ahead of most people then. Even something as simple as having a 401k match can really, set yourself up if you're just contributing, what your company will match. Maybe you had a bunch of different jobs when you were super young, so you have a bunch of different skills and, you can go do whatever you want. And that's an advantage a lot of young people have as well. Even when you're young, you have less obligations in life. You probably don't have a family and kids, that's an advantage that you have. And it might also be an advantage to have, a family and kids. You could see it both ways, So it's all about realizing what you have now and then being able to take advantage of that and really get where you want to go in life. I've been trying to apply this to my own life recently, and it's super easy to focus where, you feel behind. I'm always trying to think of where I can build compared to where I am now, if that makes sense. And personal finance is kind of my gateway to that, getting where I want to be. It kind of feels like more strategic and personal for me lately. I'm learning that progress comes from using what's already in my hands, or my advantages. The main takeaway for this video is to stop obsessing about what other people have. Take a step back, look at what you do have, and then use those things to your advantage. This applies to life in general, but especially with your money. The progress tends to start when you stop comparing yourself and you start actually doing something with an advantage that you already have. And that's just my opinion, on this topic. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment.